Hey, what's up, guys? Start. All right. You guys can drop a like and stuff and let me know where you're from. But we're going to be taking questions. I'm about to record with Dom from the Logos Project. I'm going to ask him if he's okay if I live stream during it. But if not, we'll do another live next time. All right, who do we got live so far? Who is joining us now early? So we're about to do a live stream, or no live stream. I'm about to do an interview. I'm going to see if he's okay if I keep the live stream going. I love doing that because it allows you guys to ask questions. So if you'll be able to hear him, obviously hear me, but you'll be able to hear him through the speaker. You won't be able to see him, but you guys will be able to hear the conversation. So then if you guys have conversation or questions during it, then I can answer those for you at the end, or even have maybe Dom answer them as well. If you guys checked out our latest episode, this series, The 7 Vices and Our Opposing Virtues, Dom was our most recent guest. So he was the third episode, and we talked a lot about greed and generosity, which was really cool. Something obviously I think we all struggle with, but it was a really good one. You guys can check that out on our full page. And yeah, it's been good. But you guys can drop a like up here. This always helps us in the algorithm. You guys can comment, get an active live chat going, because that's always fun to know where you guys are from. Fun for you guys to have a conversation, for us to be able to talk in the live stream as well. And then also don't forget to subscribe, because you guys subscribe, help the channel. We're trying to hit 2,500 subscribers. We're about 350 so away. Bro, are you crippin'? I don't even know what that means. Check out my skin complexion. I have no idea what that means. No. Wendy Gray, what is up? Winda, I said Wendy. Winda Gray, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining. We got more people voting on Do You Evangelize? That's kind of what we're talking about, so that's why I put that in there. So, are you in a gang? No, I'm not in a gang. Zahir, Z, L or I, A. Okay, that's a good way to get it going. What's up, Haley? White Height said hi. Leah Martinez said hi. Name a car for a weight. I don't know what that means. So, I don't know anything about cars. But one of my neighbors went to my other neighbor, stole my wheelchair, and then threw it across the yard. Jeez, my goodness. I better not catch you lacking, bro. You ain't safe. Mikey, what in the world? Do you play video games? No, I don't. I used to play. We used to play like Call of Duty and stuff like that back in the day. So, do you like One Piece? I don't even know what you guys are talking about. So, that is awesome. A lot of you guys need Jesus. What you need? Trial Fortnite. I've seen Fortnite. I've seen people play it. I don't understand the hype behind it, but I am always down to try something. So Haley, you are getting your money's worth now. Like, I'm so glad that you are one of my, I'm running blank what they're called. But yeah, can you do me a favor and try Fortnite? Sure. Yeah, we can try Fortnite sometime. Awesome, thank you. Tobey Maguire, laughing face. Tobey Maguire is the Spider-Man. He is the legit Spider-Man, so love it. Name a car for an edit. Dude, I don't know, like, I don't know what edit you're talking about. Zaysay the GOAT. Name a car for edit. I drive a Chrysler 200, so. Whew. Yeah, it's so funny how sometimes you just get spammed with so many people. It's so funny. Dude, I absolutely know nothing about cars, like one bit whatsoever. I know nothing about cars. But hey, a lot of you guys in here, so hit that like right there. Get some vote in the poll. Keep the conversation going. If you guys have any questions about evangelization, the little wave evangelization, anything, we're gonna be doing a stream here in a little bit, and we will be able to answer those questions. It is the phone/short version. Haley, what are you talking about? It's the phone/short version? Oh, yeah. I imagine. You know, I also imagine, like, if any of you guys are content creators, I've dabbled with like sponsoring a post, and I think that YouTube is completely scamming people. Like when you pay to sponsor a post, because I'll see the views go up like crazy, but then your watch time is like average. Like when a normal watch time, like for a 20-minute video, maybe 6-7 minutes. Like the average watch time when you sponsor it, it literally ends up being like 30 seconds or 20 seconds. It's crazy. So I just like, they have to have bots just like going on, watching long enough to make it a view and then jumping off. Like there's no way that stuff's not just a bot. Ayechin, if that's how you say it. Is it an I or is that an L? Maybe it's Lychin, Pizarro. What's up, man? But yes, this is kind of one of the most active live streams we've had. Hope we get more non-trolls in here, but Mila, whatever that means. You guys are making Haley work tonight. So yeah, so we are going live. I just got word from Dom that he's cool if we live stream during. I think I'm actually going to be live with him as well. This whole thing may be live. I don't know. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about a little bit, probably the little wave of evangelization, but just also what we're up to at the channel, what he's up to, and so it should be fun. I love the invites where we are like not super scripting things or like extremely preparing, but we're just kind of throwing out a topic and then joining. Those are some of my favorite. Man, it is freezing. I'm in Oklahoma where it's probably like 20 something degrees right now, but here like come Thursday I think it's supposed to drop to like 0 or 1. Also, this may be the last time you guys see the box. If you guys are new to the channel, I kind of ghetto rigged a box because the mic sits so low, but it doesn't pick up. Even though when I have the volume and stuff cranked all the way up on the soundboard, it just doesn't pick up the voice well. And so I literally ghetto rigged a box. You'll never see it in one of my videos. It cuts off just the right amount, but it's pretty cool. Hey, what's up?
What's up, Josh?
Not much.
There we go. All right. So I hope it's okay. I titled the live stream, and I can change it if not, but the little way.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So for format, I'll let you kind of begin it if you want, and then we can just kind of have a conversation, or whatever you want to do. What did you have in mind exactly? Just a back and forth?
Yeah. I mean, I was down for whatever you're down for. So whatever you want. Yeah, we can definitely do that though. Kind of kickstart it, and I guess it is, especially even like the little way is kind of like how I even got involved with the Catholic Church and to like what I do now and then with this channel. And so I can even start just talking a little bit about like just my story too, like where I came from. So.
No, that would be great. Yeah. So we can do that. I'll put a plug in for your channel, and then we can just shoot the crap and just start talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I've got a live stream with some questions, but I'm not sure that sometimes I have some, sometimes I don't. Haley from the Discord channel, she's one of the I
Oh
always
yeah,
forget what they're called, like the people who can like
she's everywhere.
kick people out and stuff. Yeah, but we just got spammed with people that are like, "Are you in a gang? Like you better watch your bag." I'm like, "What in the world?" It's like,
What?
yeah, so
Oh my
she's like
goodness.
kicking people out left and right. So I don't know if we'll have any questions, but I'll check over there later to see.
Okay, and my live chat will be on as well.
Oh, cool, nice.
So we'll see if anything trickles in.
Yeah. Yeah, I've typically since
all right.
I'm relatively new to the live streams. I've typically just started them knowing they'll have 1 or 2 people. I'm like, but I got to keep doing them until it'll grow eventually. So yeah.
No, of course not. I know what you mean. Let me see if I can turn my light on a little bit more to match yours.
Yeah, mine's a little bright. I can even do the opposite, is like turn mine down a little bit. I don't know if that's like better.
Oh, I think that's perfect right there. Yeah.
Cool. I've got 2 lights. Like one I
Definitely.
put up a little higher, than one's like kind of right up my eye level a little bit. And so sometimes it's a little much. I need to get some. These are just bright white. I need to get some like yellow ones so it doesn't like make me look paler than I already am.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I have 2 as well, but I have turned on because my lamp is on in the corner, so I'm hoping it kind of cancels out.
Yeah.
All right, let me make sure I got all my stuff here. Okay, and that is on.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so if you're ready, I'm ready, and
Okay.
we'll just go. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Logos Project. This is your host, Dom. And in today's video, I'm joined by my new friend, Josh, from the Happy Hour.
Oh, yeah.
Was kind enough to have me on his show last week. Was it last week or?
Yeah, it was last week. Yeah.
Yeah, you were doing on the 7 deadly sins and their opposing virtues.
Yeah.
And we out greed and generosity. And if you guys want that on the post section of my YouTube channel, so definitely go check that out and subscribe to Josh's channel. Sounds like you're doing great stuff over there, Josh.
No,
But since you're new to the audience, go ahead and introduce yourself
Yeah.
and tell us a little bit more about your backstory and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm Josh. I'm the host of the Holy Happy Hour, and like every person and their mom, like I started a podcast, just kind of out of like pure passion for it. I never thought that it would maybe be something, and it's kind of God's really blessing it. But kind of to back up a little bit about my backstory is I grew up in the Baptist church, but I grew up in like kind of a status quo Christian family. Like we only went to church because we lived in a town of like 2,600 people, and everyone would know if you didn't go to church. And so kind of the only reason we went. And I got the option actually when I became a freshman in high school. My parents said you can decide if you want to go to church or where you want to go to church. So I obviously, as a freshman in high school, immediately stopped. And so me and my 3 brothers all stopped. And I did get lucky though, because I stopped and it wasn't long. Then that was the summer, and I started my freshman year of high school and met my cross country team. They're all going to the same church. It's a Protestant church, so kind of like I call them feel good churches now. And but I was really blessed for that because it at least kept me tethered a little bit to just a faith life in general. And so I kept that a little bit. Kind of fell away a tiny bit. All my friends were seniors, and I was a junior. They left, and I stayed back. And it wasn't until I got back into college, and then kind of the same thing. Met my college roommate. He wanted to invite me to church when looked at churches, and wound up at Life Church. And another thing, it was great. At least it kept me tethered to something. And it wasn't until kind of going to the whole roller coaster thing, I got into my career, went away from the church, and that's where I like really went away. Like I was in my career, I was making good money as a personal trainer. I was meeting people that were, it's all about vanity, all about partying, all about that kind of stuff. And it was just not a great life. And I think I've always kind of had this thought in my head, like there's got to be more to all of this. And in looking back now and reflecting back into like a examination of my life story, I can tell that God was in my ear the whole time, just saying, there's more to this, there's more to this. But it wasn't until I actually met my wife through one of the gyms I worked at, and we started dating. She invited me to Mass, and I went with her. And my only experience with Mass was as a trumpet player, so I just knew like I went and played. It was very very weird. It seemed like everything was scripted, and that it was just kind of the church Olympics, this stand sit kneel, and I just had no idea.
Aesthetics.
Yeah, and I had no idea what was going on. So I was just like, whatever, like this is weird. But when I met my wife, and then she took me, she would sit there and was like, yeah, so the priest says this because this, or this is where it's at in the Bible, and she would explain things to me, and then we really hit it off when I was able to say, in the music, anytime they're talking about something or singing about something good, the music will go up, and if it's talking about something bad, the music will go, and I would go down, and like I would explain things like that to her, and she thought that was fascinating, so we kind of hit it off on that kind of stuff, and it wasn't shortly after that I met some people who invited me to OCIA, and I went, and I think that's when God like kind of really revealed, like I've been saying, there's more to this, and every OCIA class was just like, I never had a light switch moment, so there was never that kind of like, oh my gosh, this is so true, like I'm going to become Catholic, but it was like I didn't have a reason not to become Catholic. It just everything made sense, and I like to say I'm not just like a super gullible person, so it's not like I was like just easily persuaded. I'll believe what anyone tells me, but I was really blessed with a guy that just walked with me, and I actually moved to Oklahoma City from Tulsa halfway through, and he was like, you know what? I want to continue to walk with you. If you're willing, drive back once a week, and we'll go to lunch, and I'll do OSA with you one-on-one, which is kind of perfect with the topic for today. But he, did one-on-one. We walked through it together, and he finally got me to the fork in the road where it's like, this is your decision time. So became Catholic, and then as people say now, they're like, man, you became Catholic and jumped off the deep end, because that was 5 years ago, not even 5 years ago, 5 years ago this Easter. And they're like, ever since then, I started a business, but I sold the business to go work for the church, started working for the church. I got into Bible studies, started leading my own Bible study, started this Catholic podcast, and volunteer for stuff. I'm a guest speaker at a few conferences coming up, and everyone's just like, dude, yeah, you kind of just jumped off the deep end. I'm like, yeah, I fell in love with it really fast. But yeah, so
that's fantastic.
The short-ish version of though.
Yeah, no. One thing that I think is important in your story there is that the importance that OCIA plays. It used to be called RCIA. Recently, was changed to OCIA. And I guess just for the sake of the audience, maybe I could capitalize on that. If you're part of a Catholic parish, and even better, if you're part of an OCIA program, like, please do not underestimate the importance and the effectiveness of the OCIA program, but especially the importance, because it's actually very much worthwhile effort into making the OCIA program something that's well done, right? So, an intelligent catechesis, a lived, right, a process, right? It's an initiation into the church, because all these new converts who are coming, kind of like you, right, and who are kind of smitten by Catholicism. You guys are the future of the church. I mean, there's a lot of people that were hemorrhaging in the Catholic Church, just like in any other denomination and religion, quite frankly, in the Western world. Yeah. However, there are people like you, it seems to me, that are coming back, that are young, that are on fire, that discovered this entire tradition and all this history of beauty, architecture, music, the saints, theology, philosophy, and it's like. Wow, you've discovered that field with the treasure buried in it, right? Yeah. And so it's so important. I just want to get this across. It's so important that we work as parishioners to, volunteer to make the OCIA programs the best they can be. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that. But please continue. That's
absolutely. Yeah, because we for our OCIA program, our parish is constantly inviting, saying, even if you're Catholic, like, come back, come to the classes, and like take a look. Here's the list of the classes, everything we're doing each week, so that you can look and say, like, if they're doing the sacraments, and you're like, okay, the sacraments of initiation, I'm not 100%, like, I don't know if I'd be able to describe them to somebody. Okay, I'm gonna go attend that class and continue to grow, because it really is a continuously growing process, and OCA is the best place to go and be there. It's not just for people that are becoming Catholic, but then on the other hand too, I think that if most parishes like ours, our parish is constantly looking for sponsors. So I'm just like signed up just to be on the list, and it's not even every year, but every now and then they'll call me and like, hey, we got a guy who wants to become Catholic. He doesn't know anybody in Tulsa, or he doesn't have anybody that would sponsor him, and so I'll sign up to sponsor him. Even if I can't make all the classes, I'll just make sure I stay in touch with him and try to get coffee if I don't make the class. But it's definitely worthwhile, because I think I heard one time, it's like, for every one person that comes in the church, we have 2 leave or something like that. And it's just like kind of
Yeah.
crazy. And I don't know if that statistic's right. I don't have any data to back that up, but I think I just heard that somewhere.
It definitely rings true, but no, you're right. If you are Catholic and you just want to learn the faith better, it's also a good thing to go and support the catechumens or the candidates, the seekers, as we call them sometimes.
Yeah.
But also, if the program, some places, because there's not much resources, maybe there's something that one can do to make it better.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Catholics who know their faith out there, who go to Mass on Sunday, but who could probably get more involved. And OCI, I think, is one of those areas, fields of mission that
Yeah.
is definitely very important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think too, it's like to encourage people not to think to themselves like, well, Josh has got a podcast and he works for the church and he's the perfect kind of person to sponsor someone or whatever. It's like, no, we need everybody. We need as many people as we can, like to be sponsors, just be active, even if it's not sponsored for OCA. But you are like, you know what, like I've been doing this for a while. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding, but I want to continue to grow in my faith. So I'm going to start up a Bible study or start up some kind of small group, because I think that's the biggest thing, at least in my area, and maybe different other parts. But I feel like in my area, the biggest thing right now is that we're needing more people to be active disciples that are like walking with people in a small setting. No one needs to like start up a podcast like I did or anything like that. But we do need people to meet with a couple guys like once a week or so, or every other week, and that's where I think the biggest call for the church is. And I think where thriving parishes have a very good like community like that, and the ones that struggle, I would bet, don't have as good of a community like that, have like good Bible study numbers and stuff like that.
For sure, especially for us after COVID, everything blew up in a good way. Like people were so sick of being isolated that we have a young adult group. We call it a young adult group, but some of us aren't so young. I mean, I'm still young, but it really blew up, and so I'm very grateful for that. But last time I talked to you, you mentioned the spirituality of the little way.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Saint Therese of Lisieux being the kind of championing of that.
Yeah.
Tell me more, if that's okay, about how you encountered this this way of thinking, right? This little way. What appealed to you?
Yeah. So I first of all, I'm really, really highly involved with Focus. I'm one of the blessed people. If people don't know what Focus is, a fellowship of Catholic university students. I don't remember if they're changing that or not, but it's missionaries on college campuses, but now they're actually putting them in parishes too. But I got lucky to be involved with them pretty, even before I became Catholic. And their big thing was win, build, send. And I think when people think of some of the statistics, even the one I just mentioned with every person that comes into the church, 2 are leaving. And if that's the stat, or if it's 3 leaving, whatever it is. But if it does seem like it's we're actually bleeding members, I think that can be really discouraging to people. And people may think we need some kind of miraculous, we need another St. Francis Xavier is what we need. Someone go out there and baptize 300,000 people. But truly, I think what we actually need is people that are willing to walk with other people, people that are willing to invest in other people. But I think where that starts, where I know where it starts, because St. Therese tells us, is it starts in that relationship. And I got to witness it firsthand, because when I was at that parish, I didn't know anybody. And I finally had someone invite me to a retreat, got to know some of the older guys. But then they put a parish focus missionary at the parish. And that guy was like, let's go get coffee. We got one-on-one. He invited us over to his house, and we cooked dinner and stuff. We had him over to our house. We just became really, really good friends. And he intentionally invited me into walking with him. I want to walk with you, not just through Bible study though, through what we call discipleship. And I want to walk with you through this process that will help you to become the best disciple, or I guess whatever the word is, that you can be, so that you can go out and help evangelize and stuff within the parish, in the community as well. And it all started though with that relationship. So in Focus, it's win, build, send. And so they which some people don't like the win word because it kind of sounds salesy, but it's just winning someone over, like winning that affection. You guys become good friends, and I think all evangelization comes out of relationships. One thing I was thinking about with this, when I knew we were doing this stream today, I was thinking about street evangelizers. I knew that was gonna come up in my talk at some point, or saying, is I feel like there maybe is a place for that. I've never been a big fan of it just because I feel like it starts so much division and starts so much. It kind of people put their walls up really fast, but when you go that
Yeah.
individual route of really investing in someone's life, and whether it's a Protestant friend or an atheist friend or whoever it is, you start building this relationship. Now they trust you, and not in a scheming way. That's why I said sometimes it seems like a little like I'm going to trust somebody so that I can sell them this product. But it's when the product you're selling is salvation. I think it's worth it to get to know them, and so they will trust you. And then when they're also won over to what you're selling, they're loving Jesus as well. That's where then you can start to build them up in the knowledge and the faith and their prayer life, in the like getting them to the sacraments, building them up so that they have a
Yeah.
strong foundation. And then send is the last phase, and send is the like now I want to like send you into the community. I mean, obviously the Saint Therese is the one who kind of really kind of pioneered all this, but it's really Jesus's way and the way he did things. And I actually just did a reflection on my Patreon account recently of I do like gospel reflections daily, and was doing one where he sent the disciples out, and he sends them out 2 by 2, and he could have covered twice the ground if he would have sent them out 1 by 1, but he sends them out
Good
2 by
point.
2 because he knows the importance of walking together. Like you need those guys. So I'm
Yeah.
part of a Bible study, I'm part of a parish, but I'm part of the most important group is my discipleship group, and it's literally just me and 3 other guys, and all of those guys are also leading other guys. So I've got my Bible study, but it's really important that I get with those guys too, because I can share my struggles with like where am I at with this Protestant guy that's my Bible study that's not quite like coming around to it, or how can I be better for him or something. It's just a great group of guys that we can really come together and dropping things, and reflect on our ministry and our work and our evangelization efforts, to either build up Catholics or to help bring people into the church. And when we do hit those walls or hit those places, we have that place to that small group to walk with and to continue to build in our own faith. So
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, being Christian is not something you do on your own, right?
yeah.
It's funny because I can't remember exactly where it was and how he said it, but one of the authors I was reading was talking about evangelization. In a sense, being Christian shows you how to truly be human, and being human shows other people something about Christ, right? And so, John Paul II, Saint John Paul II, it's a quote he used a few times, which was, "We don't impose the faith; we propose the faith." And so, it's kind of alongside the same lines as what Pope Francis talks about when he mentions the difference between proselytism and evangelization.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, people misunderstand that, to not proselytize means to not speak about Christ to others. But no, we're supposed to speak about Christ to others, but not as something that is manufactured, like not something like treating people like a project. And this
Yeah.
did with a friend of mine, with 2 friends of mine. The first was such a mess, and it backfired and it was miserable.
Mhm.
The second time, I, thanks be to God, realized I really shouldn't be treating people as projects.
Mhm.
And so I actually came to accept that that, you know what, he's not interested in becoming Catholic, and so I'm not going to try to win him over. I'm just going to be a good friend to him.
Yeah.
And it turns out he did become Catholic.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's something about that. It was Father de Lubac who talks about, being in Christ, our humanity is revealed, right? What it means to be a human being is revealed. And
Yeah.
good, whole, integral human being becomes something that's possible in Christ. But if we're good citizens, good human beings, good members of the community, of the city, you might say,
Yeah.
then people are going to be like, you know what, that person really is flourishing.
Mhm.
Why is it? What
Yeah.
makes them so, so full of that kind of sense of purpose, meaning? They appreciate beauty,
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff, right? And then, well, if you ask me, well, it's the humanity of God
Yeah.
in Christ. that really is the reason why this path has been opened up for me. And so so it seems to me that that's something that you can't do on your own, because human beings are
Mm-hmm.
they're social animals.
Yeah.
They're meant to be in community.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I took over and started lecturing.
No, you're good. I like it.
My point, though, is that I think that you're absolutely right. You're not supposed to go on your own, kind of door knocking. You're supposed to be with friends, to live with friends, and to kind of share the identity in Christ, and then just be members of society and befriend other human beings. And I think through that, right? And then, of course, if the moment arises, usually I wait till people ask me. If the moment arises, then you tell them, well, look, I'm Catholic, and Catholic faith is amazing,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and that's something my wife just had an awesome story. Actually, literally just happened today, and super cool. But she had a friend that kind of fell away from the faith, got divorced from her husband, and kind of just fell off the wagon in general. So she was Protestant, but her friend, she always just loved her where she was. Like she would not afraid. They had a good enough relationship. She wasn't afraid to say the truth to her, or say her own opinions on things, her own feelings, or what the Catholic Church teaches. And even if they would disagree, they always had this great respect for each other. And out of nowhere, just they haven't talked to maybe 2 years, 3 years. I mean, it was crazy. Just out of nowhere, she texted her and said, "I was just so overwhelmed today. I just really felt God was telling me to reach out to you, and I just really would love to meet up." And it's just super cool. Where it's just something that my wife, even though they hadn't talked in a while, the fact that my wife was always there for her, and just continued to be who Jesus would want her to be to her friend. And then just trust the process and continue to pray for her. That you never know when it's going to come back around, and you always just keep praying that it does. And unfortunately, there will be those people that don't, but you keep praying that I really hope that I get the opportunity to have that impact in her life, or I hope she runs into somebody that will have that impact in her life. But so it's awesome. We have some crazy winter weather coming, but they're going to get together next week, so super excited about that. But another thing I was thinking though too is that Jesus was always the example for us on what we should do, and the two ways that he always talks about, which is kind of relevant to both of them, or that he does that's relevant to both of this, is that he himself could have also done it on his own. He could have gone on his own and just been on his own. He didn't need other people. He was fully human, but he was fully God. But he himself went and surrounded himself with men, and obviously he needed to establish the church as well. But during his mission and stuff, he also surrounded himself with men, showing us this is what you guys should do as well. Have that community with you. I just love that he does that, shows that example. But then also I love that it's someone who is fully God also takes that time to go off and pray, go off and cry and pray and be distraught, showing that fully human side and fully God side, but still showing as an example. Even when they show up to another town, he's let's go off and pray, and takes them with him. And just beautiful to see. And it's all about community, and the more you have it and the stronger it gets, I feel life just gets a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier to deal with, and you don't feel so alone when you do have those struggles. You have those especially those really deep mortal sins that you're struggling with. If you have a group of friends that you can just open up with and be able to share hey guys, I just want to be honest with you because I know I can trust you guys. I'm struggling with A or B or whatever. I'm struggling with pornography and I need help. As soon as you can find a community that you're willing to share that kind of sin with, or something moral with, that they can, that they're not going to shame you or try to exclude you from the group or separate themselves, but they're gonna walk with you, man. The enemy doesn't like that, and it's just so important.
No, I completely agree. I love what you're saying, because part of Saint, I was reading, this was years ago, I was reading Saint Therese's A Story of a Soul, and actually this is an interesting story. I was actually, because you live in Tulsa, we talked about this last time. You're an hour away, if I remember correctly, from Clear Gabby.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And 2 years, a bit less than 2 years. And I remember reading Saint Therese's Story of a Soul in my cell, and coming across a passage where she has this analogy of her and another great saint at the bottom of a mountain, and the mountain represents like the mystical ascent to God, right? The ascent of holiness. And you have this saint just like, with a pickaxe, climbing up the mountain, like, 10 meters time, beats and just incredible. And he, heads up towards the top of the mountain. And, us little people are at the mountain, just the first few feet up. And she says, I just get in the elevator. And her point was that, God kind of picks me up in his hand and just puts me on top. I don't have to do any of the climbing. Now, what she was trying to say is, and I kept reading it, and she was talking about this attitude of trust. This childlike attitude of trust. And I remember, I'm cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, it's just a little bit.
Okay, I'm good right now?
Yeah. I was catching everything.
Yeah, don't hesitate to cut me off if I'm unintelligible. Yeah. No, but I bring up the story because of Saint Therese, right? And she talked about this idea of, and I remember being in my cell at the monastery and thinking, if only I could figure out this trust thing, I could probably get to the top of the mountain, just like Saint Therese, through the elevator, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember asking the other monk that was in charge of the novices, I was like, Father, Saint Therese says that, if you trust, like, God's gonna make you super holy. How do you do that? And he looked at me and he goes, he was a French priest. He goes, use. And I was like, well, right, you do. He goes, you just trust. And so I was very dissatisfied with the answer.
We may have missed the as soon as you said he said, and then it cut off, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Oh my gosh. Here, let me switch my internet real quick. Sorry about this.
You're good. Let me check. We have to go back to what he said. He said something.
Okay. Yeah, so I asked, hey, Father, so, how do you trust? What's this thing, you do? How do you do it? And he was a French priest, and he goes in his thick accent, he goes, well, you see, you just trust, that's it. and I remember thinking, well, right, well, how do you do that? He just looks at me and he goes, you trust.
Yeah.
And I was frustrated with that answer.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I'm starting to understand what he means. Basically, it's not about something that you do, like you get this secret cheat code in the video game to get to a level. It's actually just learning to kind of live in the moment and to just kind of basically believe that God will take care of things. And the way you do that is that you don't rely on yourself.
Yeah.
In other words, it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, which is you don't go about it alone, but in community.
Yeah.
So the conclusion I reached like years later was the way I trust in God is by relying on other people and not relying on myself.
Yeah.
That's kind of my practical way of trying to do that. Yeah. And that goes exactly to what you were saying about, dealing with, sins or struggles or issues or what have you. If you're doing it on your own, I mean, you're screwed. That's not going to work. Yeah, right? You can't climb that mountain.
Yeah, I read something one time. I can't remember if it was like a saint or something. And I'm sure a lot of people have said it. But yeah, the mentioning, like, that's what Satan wants. Like, he wants you alone. Like, he wants you by yourself. If he can get you by yourself and isolated, then he can mess with your mind and play with you. And it's never good.
No, absolutely. And there's something about that kind of Teresian trust is what I'd call it, I guess, that is exactly the essence of her little way, which is to really, to have the kind of trust of a child that God will take care of this and to not rely on yourself and that pride to rely on yourself. And I feel like if we do that, if we rely on our friends, if we rely on others, if we rely on God, then he can, zap us up to the mountain and we don't have to worry about that. All we got to worry about is not relying on ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's a good spiritual principle,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we even have... go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I just wanted... I forgot because of all the tech issues what I was getting at with this, and I finally remembered. It was when you talked about, evangelization, oftentimes a spirit of trust involves accepting the fact that you're not going to be able to, in a debate with a friend, a friendly debate, which happens a lot, you're not going to be able to convince them. But what you could do is plant those seeds that God will use later to change their lives.
Yeah.
And so that ceases to become a kind of project that you have to control.
Yeah.
And it becomes a trusting attitude of being an instrument in God's providence.
Yeah.
To me, that's so much more fruitful.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll shut up now.
Yeah,
Go ahead, please.
and I heard, so I'm super blessed, and I know a lot of people probably know Carlo Broussard, and he moved here to Tulsa. Me and him have just struck up amazing friendship, and it's been cool to talk to him, but he always tells me, it's like, especially when starting this channel, I was talking to him recently about possibly hosting debates on my channel. I'm not too 100% sure. Not me. I'd just be the host and bring people on.
Nice.
But he's like, yeah, when it comes to that stuff, just remember, like, if you ever do want to get into it, which you should, he's encouraging me to, but he said, just remember, like, debates are good for that, exactly, like planting seeds and doing stuff like that. But you're never going to, hardly ever, I guess you can't say never, but you're never going to convince somebody in that one sit down, that 1 hour coffee that you get with them. And then that kind of goes back to, like, it's part of the relationship, and you shouldn't want to be like, okay, what, you don't get it, I'm done. It should be more of a, like, okay, like, I kind of get where your stuff's coming from. If I send you some stuff, will you read it, or will you watch this video, or whatever, continue to invest in them, and you just don't want to lose that relationship. It's just like, keep that going, because you're not going to convince someone overnight, most likely. Like I said, I went through OCA. I was like 4 months in or so, and he was kind of like, how are you feeling? I was like, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. Everything so far makes a lot of sense, but I wasn't necessarily ready to make the jump yet by any means. And so it took until about the very end until I was like, yeah, I want to do this. And so that's what I've been trying to just be excited. And it's changed my mindset too when I talk to my Protestant friends. Like, I've got a couple Protestant friends that are so on fire for Jesus. They lead their own Bible studies. They pray together at night. And it is awesome. Like, I should be so happy for them. I should want them also to have know and experience the fullness of the church and fullness of the truth. And I still want them to be Catholic, and they know that. But
of course.
But I know
and
that
they should want you to become, Protestant. So
which is interesting, because they don't. They actually very respect and like that I'm Catholic, and they're like, yeah, we love that when they just kind of believe in the whole, like. It's kind of, I don't know if you saw the John Christ and Matt Fradd interview, and John Christ was like, this is the first time having a Catholic on the show. It's like, I'm more of like evangelical. It's like, but it's kind of same business, just different wings. Would you say that? And Matt Fradd goes, nope, I wouldn't say that. So it's the funniest. A comedian and trying to make pop culture jokes and stuff the whole time, and Matt Fradd's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But I don't know where I was going with that. But just keeping that relationship and go. But these Protestant friends of ours just on fire, and it's so great. But they're willing to have those conversations with us because we're not big on like they're not going to yell at us. We're not going to yell at them. If they disagree, I remember where I was going with this. When they disagree, I think this is the best approach to plant questions in those people's heads is like through, I think, what's called the Socratic approach, is like through questions. Like if they're the ones that think the Catholic faith, that you're saying the Catholic faith is true, and they're like, no, it's not, then it's like the burden of proof's on them, not you. And so it's like, flip it, and again, not as like you're trying to like, gotcha, but like, don't let them just fire off questions at you and you feel like I'm answering all these, but like also get their opinion. And so I used to own a business where I couldn't be super political or I mean, if I could be, I let people know I was Catholic, but I didn't want to be like, I wasn't going to tell any Protestants that they needed to become Catholic, because then they wouldn't come to my business anymore. But I would plant questions all the time. And so talking about the Eucharist, it's like, what do you get out of John 6? Like, what do you think he means? And it's like, I think it's just means symbolic. Like, he was just saying this is what it was, and he was saying it's my body and you should eat of it, just meaning like you guys should get together, you guys should whatever, you should, like, it's a symbolic. I'm like, why do you think people left? Like, that's the one, that's what gets me. Why do you think people left? Like, and then he turns to the disciples too, and he's like, are you going to leave as well? Like, he seemed pretty frustrated at this point. And it's like, just planting questions like that. So it's like, how, and this, I think it's the Protestant thing, like, how would I answer that question? Like, and then, because they'll get to a point where it's like, either they're going to just stick with their ways. I don't know how to answer that question, but it's symbolic. I think it's symbolic. Or they're going to be like, man, actually, that's a good question. Maybe I'll ask my pastor. And if they can't get a satisfied answer, hopefully that's when you just encourage them to seek out the truth. And we all know if you seek out the truth, you'll eventually find yourself in the Catholic Church or running into a wall that's called pride, and that's just within yourself. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of my friends here at my local parish will tell you that I thrive in circumstances where I'm with either Protestants, agnostics, or atheists.
Oh yeah.
There's just something about talking with non-Catholics that gets me going. Like I love it, right?
Yeah.
And it always becomes, a really fantastic discussion about meaning, about religion, about all these kinds of existential questions, right? But at the same time, like I really make it. I make an effort. I don't always succeed at this, but I try to make it an effort not to view evangelization as like, an activity that purely involves argumentation and winning arguments and like amassing converts. A lot of some people in my parish. Make fun of me for this because I've been the sponsor of a few Protestant converts for their coming into the church, and they're telling me, how many you got this year, Dom, right? But it's obviously a joke. The thing is, like, if evangelization is purely this like argument game, like it really makes it disembodied. Like it's really about it's very abstract and computational almost, So I thrive in circles where I'm talking to non-Catholics because I'm going to be honest with you. I always walk away having learned something.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Like I don't know of a single time, I really can't think of one where I've talked to an atheist, an agnostic, or a Protestant where I did not walk away, even someone who's like doesn't really care about their faith.
Yeah.
Like just kind of getting to know what makes them tick.
Yeah.
I always walk away having learned something.
Yeah.
And you know what? What I've realized is that when you make that clear, that really interests the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
The fact that you're here to learn. You're the one here to learn.
Yeah.
Not to tell them what to think.
Yeah.
But you're here to learn, but also to show that you're interested in what's true and that this conversation can first of all lead to a fun friendship. You can come join our we have we call it the Catholic frat house. We have bonfires and cigars and stuff, right?
Nice.
Like there's never any pressure. And I'll tell you what, that's in my experience, right? That has led to a lot of converts. Ironically.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah, it's so interesting because they end up wanting, like, I think they end up wanting what you have. Like, they eventually realize, like, man, this guy's so joyful and he's so happy, and the questions he's so intentional because you were like being genuine about like wanting to get to know them. I actually recently invited Alex O'Connor on my show because I don't think he'll respond.
The atheist guy, right?
Yeah. But I put in the email like I'm a Catholic podcast guy. I love following Trent Horn. I'm good friends with one of his good friends, so basically best friends with Trent Horn. No, I'm just kidding. But I said, but I'd love to have you on the show because, and I said basically kind of what the words you used just now is because I'm so fascinated with how you think, and I don't think like I'm not the well, I mean, God can use anybody for anything, but I don't think I've seen him debate Trent Horn. I've seen him debate other people. I don't think I would be the one to convert him, but I would be very interested to think like how he thinks. And he like one he brings up, it's a great point. Actually, I asked Carlo Broussard the other night. I was like, what do you think about this? And I said, Alex O'Connor said he would become a Christian if someone could answer this question sufficiently to him. Now, I don't know if anyone can actually answer sufficiently to him because I think, again, there's a little bit of, pride standing in the way. But he said, if God was all loving, why would he allow things to happen like a tree fall in the wild, land on a deer, and it's stuck with broken legs and agony and pain just to die from starvation or bleeding to death? Why would a all-loving God let that happen? And so it's such an interesting, weird question that your everyday Catholic person just it's like what? Yeah, it's like what? I have never even thought about that. I don't even know how I'd answer that. It takes you a second to think about it, but he typically brings that up in all his debates, and it's just super interesting. Not to like throw that out there as like, what do you think? But it is really they think like that, and I think the reason we become so interested and like have great conversations, learn something from them. It's because I feel like the difference between having a conversation with an atheist, agnostic, or a Protestant that's really on fire for their faith, and then having a conversation with Joe and Karen, who've been going to the parish for 54 years and are there every Sunday at 8 a.m. sitting in the same seats, but that's all they do, nothing else, is that one of those parties is actually seeking out the truth and actually like doing something. But the other side, the Joe and Karen, are just checking a box. Like, I went to Sunday Mass, like, I'm Catholic,
Yeah.
but they're just checking the boxes. And we run into older people at our parish all the time. We've got a very vibrant young family. It's like dads between 30 and 38 that are super on fire for their faith, and all these
Nice.
old guys in the parish are taking it so like they're like, man, I wish I was like you when I was your guys' age. And a lot of them don't realize they're a lot smarter than they think, and they know the faith better than they think. And so now we're just encouraging them. It's like, yeah, like, get out there now, because there's a lot of older guys in the parish that
Yeah.
aren't like you guys, and so you guys need to get out there too. So yeah.
No, for sure. No, I don't remember again the exact quote, but Pope Benedict once said something like, if faith in the Logos, or faith in Christ, Logos, the meaning of all things, if this is true, right, then we have nothing to fear. Right? There's no conversation area, cultural, literary, philosophical area that we need to be afraid of.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think that a strong faith comes with the ability, I think, to actually listen to atheists, to listen to Gnostics, to listen to Buddhists, to listen to Hindus, Muslims. Like, if faith in the Logos is true, right, that there's nothing to be afraid of. In fact, it should kind of give us an impetus.
Yeah.
And I often talk about this one book I read by Henry de Lubac called The Drama of Atheistic Humanism. It's a very German-sounding title, right?
Yeah.
But it's written in French. But it's one of the most fantastic books I've ever read, where he talks about all of these atheists. He has a beautiful section on Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, and he talks about Auguste Comte, this French kind of atheist guy. He talks about, of course, Marx. Who else does he talk about? Feuerbach. It's been a while since I've read it, but well, actually, it's only been a few months. But there's just I remember reading, for example, there's a section on Marx that he begins by explaining how Marx thinks, and I'm thinking, well, wow, Marx is actually a genius. Like Karl Marx is an incredibly perspicacious thinker. But then de Lubac goes on to respond to Marx through the tradition, and it's some of the most stunning stuff I've ever read. I remember almost like weeping at how beautiful de Lubac's response was. And then Nietzsche, I absolutely love Nietzsche because of his brutal honesty. This is why I like talking to non-Catholics, if they're honest.
Yeah.
We're trying to get them more honest, right? When I talk to Protestants, I'm like, go back to the Reformers, be more Protestant, right?
Yeah.
And because only then can we have a genuine conversation, it seems to me, if we go back to the great thinkers of one's tradition. And anyway, so with Nietzsche, Nietzsche kind of lays out his case. And sorry I'll shut up in just a second.
No, you're good.
Nietzsche lays out his case of Christianity being a morality of resentment, right? Which is the weak were resentful of the powerful. And so what they did through the historical line of the Old Testament culminating in Christianity, there's this elevation of the weak and the poor, right? And this judgment on the powerful and the rich. And so Nietzsche says a whole morality is elaborated here based on this fundamental resentment that Christ embodies in a certain sense. And so he wants to, declare the death of God by choosing against God and for man, and for the power of man. Because by believing in God, man weakens himself and worships something abstracted, which divides him and alienates him. There's all this stuff about it. It's quite brilliant, but de Lubac goes on to show that Nietzsche is profoundly resentful of Christ. And he goes on to show how resentment characterizes the entire thought of Nietzsche. And he kind of concludes by quoting Nietzsche against Nietzsche and showing, and he even starts to pity Nietzsche. It's like, poor Nietzsche, right? who was tormented by Christ, right?
Yeah.
He called himself the Antichrist, right?
Mm.
And he set up this choice between Dionysius or the Nazarene. We have to choose. What I love about Nietzsche, and I'll shut up. What I love about Nietzsche is that he was not critical of simple believers,
Mm-hmm.
but he was extremely critical of liberal atheists. He said you can't have all these liberal values without the Nazarene. You have to choose between Dionysius and the Nazarene, and he chose Dionysius, and he chose the idea that man is God,
Mm-hmm.
right, and God is dead. Anyway,
Yeah.
so in other words, I think that really, if what Pope Benedict said is true, if faith in the Logos is the meaning of all things and its reality, then we really have nothing to fear at all. Like, we can talk to Protestants, atheists, agnostics, anyone, right? And if we don't have answers, well, again, like, those people who we're talking to, what they do is they raise questions that we thought we didn't have, that we can then go ahead and look into, and then our faith is strengthened.
Yeah.
So I'll shut up.
And that's the other part of like, the best thing you could have for these conversations is like a genuine interest in the person, actually listening to them and like having that because as soon as you can set that basis where they're like, okay, this person's actually genuinely interested, I like this, they're not just yelling at me for what I believe. And then I literally just spaced on the second one I was going to say. What did you just say? What was the last thing you just said?
Yeah, we have nothing to fear if this is true.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah. And then the second thing is knowing that you don't have to go into these conversations with that like all the knowledge and all the answers, because the second thing that gives you just the most credibility ever is when you're able to say, like, that's a great question. I actually don't know the best way to answer that, but I'll find out and I'll get back to you. Like, or I'll send you something, like CatholicAnswers.com. Best, like, great place to find quick answers to things. Yeah. You should always do your own research yourself too. But I think those are the two things that someone would be like, wow, that's awesome that they didn't just try to make something up or pull something out of their butt. They just like, no, they really were like, no, like, let me go back and find it. And then when you do that research yourself and you take that time that night to like, okay, I'm going to look this up. I need to find a good answer. It's going to be ingrained in your brain for a while, unless you're like me and you just forget things pretty quick, but it is going to be ingrained in your brain for a while. I feel like that's where the knowledge comes. Like, oh yeah, I do know the answer to this now because somebody asked me that last year and I didn't know the answer and I had to go look it up, but now I know it. And then someone asks you again, oh, I don't know that answer, let me go look. And so there were times where the great apologists also did not know the answers, and that's why they have all these degrees, and they went and studied all these things so that they would have the answers. And
Dude, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, most of what I learned apologetics wise has been from not having answers and saying to friend, let me look into that. I'll be right back. Right.
Yeah.
And so like I said, so in a conversation, first of all, you learn from them, right, from what makes them tick. But then you also learn from what you don't know, because then you go and look into it, at least to a certain degree, right?
Yeah.
So it's always fruitful to engage with non-Catholics, and we should always be doing it as Catholics.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the most part too, if you run into like a hardcore atheist, like, if you're not well catechized, like, don't invite Alex O'Connor to debate you or something. But like, if you are like going to church and you're going to mass and you're going to a Bible study and stuff like that, don't be afraid to invite somebody into that. And especially knowing like this is just another person, you go to work, like there's a great chance that they're not necessarily going to come at you and be this like well-formed, like thought out atheist or Protestant or anything. They may also have all the same questions, or maybe they don't, they have the questions, but they're not kind of like I was, like in my story, like I think I had a question of like, there's gotta be more, but I wasn't seeking it out. I think a lot of people are doing that nowadays. Is like, they have questions, they're just not seeking it out. And if you're willing to go, I mean, I think what Paul says in 1 Corinthians is like, I didn't come to you of great knowledge, but just of great faith. I don't know, like, it's not a word for it, but he like, I love that he kind of throws that in there of like I didn't, when I came to you guys, like I wasn't of great knowledge and stuff. I was just like, but I had faith in our Lord Jesus Christ. And
oh man, you just made me think of something. Because we're talking about Saint Therese, right? Saint Therese, like, she didn't really have like I mean, she didn't have at all like a academic education. She had no degrees. You know, she did not go to college or anything like that.
Yeah.
In fact, she joined the convent extremely young.
Yeah. Like 15, 16.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact age, but that sounds right. Yeah, and I mean, she had to go to Rome to beg the Pope to let her make the superior let her in.
That's awesome.
No, but you know what's funny is that this very simple, non-educated girl, right? Just through praying and acts of charity and that paradigmatic trust that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Just letting go of her self-will, of self-reliance, and relying on God and relying on others, right? And these acts of love, you know, and that little way of the little things.
Yeah.
She became so in tune with the logic of love, right? That her diary was the occasion for her declaration as a doctor of the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. It's so crazy. And it's cool to see that she truly was like so satisfied and to be in that convent and just be spending time praying with Jesus every single day, all day. And I think I read something and this story, I love it, that like after she died, the other sisters, nuns, whatever, the nuns were asked to like write her eulogy or whatever, and one of them I think was quoted actually saying like, we don't know what to write, she didn't do much. And I'm like, that is so awesome. Like, I would hate to be the person that said that after she got canonized, but obviously maybe that was the case, though, that it didn't seem like she was doing much until they discovered her diary and stuff, and they're like, oh wow, like this is like amazing, this is worth canonizing her as a saint. And
not only that, but like in Pope before he was Pope, Pope Benedict actually insinuated in a passage that I don't think he says it explicitly, I think someone else says it explicitly, but that Therese could be considered as the perfect foil, like the perfect opposite of Friedrich Nietzsche himself. Which is completely crazy because Nietzsche is like this like really educated, brilliant philosopher.
Yeah.
Therese is this very emotional young girl.
Yeah.
Right. And she is kind of propped up as the perfect opposite of this great atheist, you know, or infamous or famous atheist. You know, and this I almost forgot. There's a story where they actually found the records of a hotel where Nietzsche had stayed the night. And in the records was also found the names of Mr. and Mrs. Martin and their daughter, it says.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And their daughter, Therese, right? And so what that means is that at one of the, at one night at this hotel, Nietzsche and Therese were there at the same time. So you can just imagine, Mr. Nietzsche with his long mustache, his brooding, his brooding kind of composure and demeanor, walking into the elevator, you know, like stroking his mustache and being a little gloomy. And then little Therese looking up at him saying, bonjour, monsieur, you know. And they're going up this elevator, and there they are. Therese, little Therese.
Yeah.
And you know, brooding Nietzsche. And to me, that image is so powerful as to what Christianity really is.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, it's always amazing thing. And speaking of the parents, I every time I get, like, I will for the rest of my life, like, always plug this, even if it is not relevant at all, which I guess you could argue it is. But I started reading Story of a Soul when I, like, was 6 months into becoming Catholic, and I was just like, this is way over my head. So I stopped. I didn't read it. But then, like, a couple Lents later, me and my wife are like 3 years in, we're like, we wanted to do a book together, and we did The Extraordinary Parents of Saint Therese, and it, to this day, was the best book we've ever read for our marriage. And it's super cool because it's a book written about them, and then, like, it'll say, in a letter, Saint Zélie wrote this, and then it's the letter. Like, it's the actual letter translated into English, and so just talking about all these things. They spend a lot of time away from each other, but they have this amazing story of just great faith and trust. I mean, they lost, like, just as much children as they had. Some of them after birth, like 1 year old. A lot during miscarriages, and so. But it's just an awesome book for I think all of their. It's like all.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
It's like almost all their parents or all their family, I think, are either canonized saints or on their way or something. But no, that's
All the
great.
sisters were Carmelites. Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, I was gonna say something I forgot. Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say I relate to you. That was the exact same experience for me. The first time I read Story of a Soul, I put it down. The main reason for me was because I don't want to sound irreverent, but I was quite frankly just annoyed at Therese. I remember thinking like she was way too emotional,
Yeah.
was way too girly, and I was like frustrated with her. Like I'm like, get over yourself, stop crying all the time.
Yeah.
And so I love Saint Therese, so please don't smite me down with your roses. But I put it down. I couldn't do it. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And it was at the monastery where I picked it back up, and it was an entirely different reading.
Yeah.
And so that,
and I think that's completely okay. So if anyone's listening and they're like, "Man, I've done that before," I picked up a book, Imitation of Christ. That's another one. I read that one the literally the second day I was Catholic, and I was like, "This, I don't even understand this." And I'm reading, but I'm reading it now, and I'm reading it differently because I was just trying to go through it, like read it like a normal book, and I'm like, "This is so weird." Like what? It's not like written like it's like literally each paragraph is numbered and it's like sectioned off. I'm like, this isn't like a book. I thought it was gonna be some kind of like regular book of like how you can imitate Christ better, but it's like no, it's like sectioned off. It's like actually related more to like the catechism. But now like I read it and I'll read a couple sections at a time. And a priest of ours, Father Elkin at Christ the King, said, I read books to understand them, not to finish them. So he says some books are meant to be read like that. And so I took that to heart and I took Imitation of Christ, and I'm like halfway through and I've been reading it for like 4 months, but it's because of what I'll do is I'll read a section, maybe 2 sections, and then I'll like during my prayer time and I'll pray with that section. And sometimes they're super relatable, so I'll just really just sit with that section for the whole day. Sometimes it's like there's sections in there on like life of cloistered life and like being a great monk and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, I can read this and just kind of it can be relative, but I'm gonna move on to the next stuff. But it's been great. It's like I think there are times where you'll pick up a book and it's like I don't know, like it's kind of going over my head and everything, and I think it's completely okay to put it down first. Don't like cross it off your list, but just move it down your list and pick up something else that's maybe hitting more home with you, because there may be maybe a different season that, because I just recently kind of been feeling really convicted to be more of like an active disciple. Like it's been over the last 6 to 8 months, probably. I mean, honestly, about the time I started this podcast, and I told myself like I want to become more knowledgeable. I want to be more like Carlo Broussard and just be quoting scriptures and knowing all these stories of saints and all this stuff. And so I picked up Imitation of Christ, and that was the first thing I wanted to read, but I knew in sections. And one of the first sections you read, it talks about like, don't just be knowledgeable for the knowledge. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna put this down. And so I like stopped reading right there, and I just really read some, and I went to my consecration book I'm doing, and it talked about like all the saints sought silence. Like they all were looking for silence. That's what God speaks to you in the silence. And so after reading that, this was like a Sunday where the kids were napping and my wife was gone. I was like, you know what? Like, okay, silence, and it's telling me don't just be knowledgeable for knowledge. And I was like, okay. So I just listened to God. I put both books down, made coffee, and went and just sat on my porch. Left my phone inside and just sat there and like was just observing like birds chirping, and like it was a really nice day, and it was awesome. It was like I thought I was going to sit there and get like a good little study in for the next hour, and I ended up just sitting on my porch for maybe like 30-45 minutes and really just listening to what like I feel like God's telling me to do at the time. And it was not to read Imitation of Christ, but it was just to, hey, just sit with me for a little bit. And so and it felt so restful. I think we all need that weekly.
That reminds me a bit of St. Francis of Assisi. I mean, he was trying to renew the church during his time.
Yeah.
And the Franciscans at the beginning, and you see this in St. Bonaventure later on, they're much more critical of an overly academic life. Like St. Francis, would, basically the main idea was that we shouldn't be like academic theologians. Our life should be a theology, right?
Yeah.
The way we live, right? The spiritual way of St. Francis is meant to be a lived theology, which is prayer, really, and also feeding and the hungry and clothing the naked, and giving to the poor. And it seems to me that, you definitely. I think who was it? There was someone who said that the real theologians pray, which means that those theologians who don't pray are actually not real theologians. If you think about it, the word theology theos logos means God, word, right? It means to speak to God or speak about God, but also the real theologians, in a certain sense, are the saints, but I mean, it seems to me that if you have just the life of the mind apart from prayer and good works, I don't know. I think it's a bit hypocritical, and ultimately, anyone who studies theology is going to be a bit hypocritical because we're all sinners. But if you're not making an effort to supply what you're studying, even if it's like apologetics as a layperson in the parish trying to be a good disciple and evangelist, if you're not supplying that with prayer and like actual friendship, love, giving of yourself, I mean, that can become very pharisaical very quickly. I know I've been guilty of that quite a bit, especially in the beginning when I was evangelizing, quote unquote. I would treat other people, like I said, well, not that many times. I did it a few times. I would treat people like a project, and I would try to tell them, "Have you read this book? Have you heard of this point in history? How do you not know that?" And then I would win the argument, try to at least, And I don't know. I feel like that's not good.
I had when I had Carlo Broussard on the very first time, I told him, I was like, I want to have you on because you're a Catholic Answers apologist and you debate people for a living and answer questions, but I want to have you on to talk about your prayer life. And he was like, oh wow, like that'd be awesome. Like no one ever asked me to do that. But we did talk about apologetics and how it's super important. But we made the distinction of like proving someone wrong for their benefit versus proving someone wrong for your benefit. Of like, I won that argument. It's like you can win the argument and they could finally not even concede, but like realize they're wrong. But it's like they still have to accept your premise too. And if you cause them to build up a wall, and it's just like, wow, I just convinced them that like whatever. Like I just convinced them that they're wrong. Like it's just like that doesn't necessarily mean that they agree with your right or they want to be part of your right. Maybe they don't want anything to do with your right because of how you went about it. And so, it's a really interesting conversation. But
no, for sure. But I mean, I don't know. I can't praise Saint Therese enough. Like she really is the saint for everyone. Like she's the saint for, just for people who like have all these like chores that they need to do, like everyday chores. Especially I'm thinking, for example, mothers who are at home, for example, or just people who have jobs that are, a bit, how to put it, some jobs that can be a bit demeaning in our economy, but people who have everyday things to do, like if they turn to Saint Therese, they